Okay, so news has come out that Meta is slashing a lot of jobs in AI operations. But specifically, it seems that those jobs are going to affect the FAIR research team. For those of you who don't know FAIR, this is the original Facebook AI research team that was founded and led by Jan LeCun. To this day, he is still, I think, one of the people who is the leaders of FAIR. And it really does seem that ever since Meta has decided to do their superintelligence lab and give people all these contracts where they're paying them often upwards of $10 million a year, plus bonuses in stock, etc., for how well models do, it really did seem that FAIR was being put on the back burner. They weren't perhaps even getting the respect that they once got. And largely this came about when Meta basically made a huge investment into Scale.ai, and Alexander Wang joined Meta as the chief AI officer. And the whole idea of him joining and this large sort of poaching from lots of teams, I've spoken to people who were actively pursued by Meta and declined it for multiple reasons, and they have decided to stay at the frontier labs that they're working at. But undoubtedly, Meta got quite a number of people, especially from perhaps OpenAI, more than from Google or Anthropic, to join their lab on this quest for AGI. And this is something that fundamentally sets FAIR against Meta's superintelligence lab. FAIR was much more about getting really good research that would create models that people would actually use. Jan LeCun has gone on the record many times declaring that he doesn't believe that LLMs are going to get us to AGI, and that even the concept of AGI perhaps is not the best thing that we should be focused on. But one thing I think that could be really sad here is that FAIR has always been a pretty open lab, meaning that a lot of their research, they published papers, they released models, they've been active in pushing deep learning forward. So let's just take a look at some of the things that have come out of the FAIR lab. If we just start with NLP things, the original RAG paper came out of the FAIR lab. Things like Roberta, which is basically a retrain of BERT, but improving it in a number of ways, came out of FAIR. And that was one of the early models that actually kicked off Hugging Face, right? At that time, Google had made the BERT models public, FAIR had made Roberta public, and people started using these models for all different kinds of research and industry applications. They've also championed things like LASER, their language agnostic sentence embeddings, and DPR sentence embeddings. We've seen them do things like speech models with Wave2Vec over the years. And we've also seen them do a whole bunch of things in computer vision, going back to things like MaskRCNN, RetinaNet, the ResNext models. More recently, the whole sort of SAM and SAM2 models came out of FAIR. And these are not just papers that were getting released. These were actual open weights models that people could use. And generally, the license behind them was pretty good as well. If you go back to earlier this week, I made a video about the DeepSeek-OCR in that they're using some of the concepts and I think even the weights from one of the SAM models in there. We've also seen FAIR do a whole bunch of things around self-supervised learning with things like Dino. And then not to mention that FAIR was one of the drivers behind the original ideas for PyTorch. We've seen them open up FACE, which allowed people to do GPU-optimized vector search. We've seen Detectron models for object detection. We've seen PAL AI, which was a collection of libraries and a framework around a bunch of LLMs that were fine-tuned for chat and things like that. And then not to mention the actual LLMs, like the original Llama, like some of the other LLMs that they basically released. And I've got to wonder now, with Meta superintelligence, how much are they actually going to make open and public research with open weights like before? We've already had rumors that a lot of the new Llama models are not going to be fully open like they've been up until now. We've seen already that the Llama 4 model, which was kind of a flop, has never actually released the bigger versions of that model. So while I'm sure a lot of the people that have been laid off from this will find jobs elsewhere, they'll find other positions, and Meta is trying to encourage them to apply for other positions inside of Meta. And perhaps this is just a cull of the researchers that they feel are not really performing in there. but it certainly doesn't bode well for taking one of the more prestigious frontier AI labs, massively reducing its headcount and probably also its access to compute, its budgets, etc. Okay, so I decided to wait a day or so before I release this video, hoping that Jan LeCun would actually comment about what has happened here. Unfortunately, the only sort of comment seems to be nothing related to this. I think time will tell. Does he actually stay part of the FAIR team and staying at Meta, etc.? Or does he move on to something else and then perhaps FAIR gets fully absorbed into the superintelligence lab? And I guess really only time will tell. Are we going to see another Llama release this year that actually is a good model that people end up using for their own deployments, for fine-tuning, things like that? Or is the ecosystem going to end up just relying on things like Quen and other models that are coming out of China? While the top proprietary models still seem to be coming out of the Bay Area in California, you've got to think that the US tech companies really have dropped the ball on the open weights models, and the Chinese companies are the ones that are actually leading there. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about the whole sort of Meta superintelligence. Do you think they're on the path to AGI? And do you think we're still going to see open releases coming out of Meta, and especially not just for LLMs, but for a lot of the other interesting kinds of models and techniques that have come out over the last 10 plus years from the FAIR team? All right, if you found the video useful, please click like and subscribe, and I will talk to you in the next video.